So somehow, 13.7 billion years ago, the energy that is still pulsating through the universe was born, and it was light, and it became matter, which got sucked gravitationally into stars, which produced higher stages of matter, more complicated atoms, and those atoms became planets, and those planets produced life, and life produced the mind, the human mind. And for all we know, there's all kinds of other life on other planets and other places in the universe that also have life and also have mind. We talk about, oh wow, what if we find life in other places in the universe? What if we find mind in other places in the universe? And what if mind is just a stage in the evolution of the universe, and that what if there's something higher than mind? What could possibly come next? And I want to talk about that, but first I want to talk about what the mind is. What is it about life that allows this mind to sort of emerge, or at least be partially seated in life? Um, and I think the crucial thing is language and symbols and signs and representations of the world. Because as an organism, just at the stage of life without mind, we cannot get outside of our experience. We can only experience directly, and that's important. That's not like a lower um, stage of evolution, a less complicated. I mean, it's less complicated maybe, but it's still just as important, because I think people that get stuck in their symbolic mind and never get back to this level of just being a body, experiencing life directly, immediately, without representation. If you can't get back to that, then you're missing something crucial. Um, but yeah, only if you're only at that level and you can't get higher, then you're always stuck in the immediate now moment. You don't know you're in the now moment. You just are. You don't have a choice. You're sort of unconscious of the fact that you're in the now. Now, when we get to the mind can take each of these individual experiences and make a word for it. Like, I go watch the Red Sox game, and I can say I watched a baseball game, and you all of a sudden know exactly what I did. So I can convey an experience through this symbolic activity of vibrating uh, sounds out of my throat and my lips, and using my tongue to form the sounds. I can shoot them out. I mean, in this case, into a microphone and a video camera, and it gets uploaded onto the internet, and then everybody can hear. Not only am I reproducing the experience of being at the baseball game in words right here, but the computer is reproducing those words in a digital language, which is being sent to your computer, which is then being decoded back into the auditory information. And so there's an extra step here, and it's amazing. Um, but okay, so when we're born, we're just an organism. We have a genetic history that allows our mind to develop language and to develop these higher conceptual states of awareness and understanding. But it's not there yet. We haven't had the necessary software downloaded onto the hardware. The software comes from our parents and our culture. They start talking to us from the very first second we're born. They give us a name. The first thing they do is give us a name, and they start calling us by the name. And then they have these babbling conversations with us, and we start to associate certain emotions with certain facial expressions. And this is the birth of the mind, of the human conceptual symbolic mind. And eventually they speak to us so much that we just pick it up, and it's almost as if the mind requires that we take the other, or the what was once external to ourselves, all these symbols and these written words and stuff, and we put them into our head all of a sudden, so they invade us basically, and then we learn to use them efficiently. But at first, we're really overwhelmed by it. So we have to sort of enter into this symbiotic relationship with these dead external symbols in order to think. Thinking doesn't really happen in here, at least not thinking in words. Thinking, speaking a language, involves opening yourself up to others and using these external storage devices, like language. The written word seems to me to be like a storage vessel for meaning, and we can store meaning in these symbols Um, and reading the symbols allows us to remember the meaning, and we couldn't remember the meaning without the symbol. And the symbol doesn't contain the meaning itself either. It's a relationship between us and the symbol. Um, but I think there's a problem in the stage in the human evolutionary development that we're moving through. This level of mind, I think human beings have become too obsessed by the symbols, and they've cut themselves off from that immediate experience of being alive and from the biosphere of the earth. And this is why we have so many environmental problems and why we have so many political problems, because people are communicating, because we're so stuck in our own symbolic interpretations. We can't even communicate with others, even though the symbols we're using are the same. We've become so individually isolated because of lots of things really. But the point I'm trying to make is the mind has disassociated itself from the body, because we think all we are is this conceptual mind, but really we're a body too, and we need to get the mind and the symbols and the conceptions in line with the body and the real physical world that's here. And I think what really happened is language decoupled the imagination from the world. So the human imagination can go off into its own imaginary dimensions, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with the real world. Because I think animals have imagination too, but it's a different kind of imagination. It's just this interior state that is directly connected to the world. So they can't, it's probably not a good thing to call it imagination. I just mean they have an interior experience. And that interior experience is still coupled to the world, because they're not yet able to symbolically take themselves out of the moment and recognize these discrete experiences in a symbolic form like humans can. But they still have that interior experience. But the human interior experience, which I guess we'll call imagination, gave rise to this human creativity and this totally free creativity that doesn't have to be restricted by any material, earthly, or even biological restrictions. But I think what we need to do is refocus our imaginations, our great creativity, on the world again, because we started thinking of all these abstract ideas and mathematical equations and all this great, amazing stuff, but it isn't helping us in this world, because it's broken off from this world and it's just, playing games with itself in outer space, basically. And if we can reconnect our imagination to the world, if we can get the noosphere, nous from the Greek mind or soul, and that word noosphere was invented by Teilhard de Chardin um, to describe what the mind is, because he thinks it's a non-local phenomenon that exists above the biosphere of the earth, that human beings sustain and support, and that they sustain and support through the internet, really. Um, so yeah, we have to get the imagination back into touch with the real world, and then we can create in the real world a better existence. Because if we apply our imagination to making people's lives better, instead of just making our ideas more complex and more amazing, then I think the imagination and the mind can be reconnected to the body, and we can really start to feel life again instead of just think it, because sometimes we get stuck in these abstractions that have nothing to do with what's really going on. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know what anybody thinks about all this.